The Peloponnesian War, a defining conflict in ancient Greek history. The Peloponnesian War, 431 to 404 BC, was a pivotal conflict in ancient Greek history, waged between the two dominant city-states of the time, Athens and Sparta. Each city-state led a powerful alliance. Athens presided over a maritime empire stretching across the northern and eastern Aegean, while Sparta headed a coalition of independent states rooted primarily in the Peloponnese and central Greece. This was not merely a local conflict. It was a full-scale war that engulfed almost every Greek city-state, reshaping the political and military landscape of the Greek world. The historian Thucydides, an Athenian general and eyewitness to the events, chronicled the war in a detailed and analytical account that remains one of the greatest works of classical historiography. Athens commanded the most formidable navy of the period and benefited from a well-managed imperial tribute system that bolstered its financial resources. Sparta, by contrast, dominated on land with its disciplined hoplite forces and was supported by allies such as Corinth, a significant naval and commercial power in its own right. Despite Athens' naval supremacy and economic strength, the prolonged nature of the war, internal unrest, shifting alliances, and devastating plagues ultimately eroded its position. The war concluded with the fall of Athens and a temporary ascendancy for Sparta, but the cost to the Greek world was profound, leaving it weakened and vulnerable to future threats. The Peloponnesian War, the epic clash between Athens and Sparta. The Peloponnesian War, 431 to 404 BC, was a defining conflict in ancient Greek history, fought between the two dominant city-states of the time, Athens and Sparta. Both powers led vast alliances that encompassed nearly every other Greek city-state. The war spread across the Greek world, impacting generations and reshaping the political landscape. The historian Thucydides, a contemporary observer, regarded it as the most significant war in the ancient world up to that point, and his detailed account remains one of the greatest historical works ever written. Athens led a maritime empire composed primarily of island and coastal states throughout the northern and eastern Aegean Sea. Sparta, on the other hand, commanded a coalition of independent land-based powers across the Peloponnese and central Greece, including the influential naval city of Corinth. The Athenians dominated the seas with their powerful navy and entered the war with considerable financial resources, funded by tributes from their empire. Sparta, however, held superiority on land with its elite hoplite forces and disciplined military culture. Although Athens and Sparta had previously clashed during what is often referred to as the First Peloponnesian War, they reached a temporary halt with the 30 Years' Treaty in 445 BC. The uneasy peace held for over a decade, but tensions resurfaced in 433 BCE when Athens formed an alliance with Corcyra, modern-day Corfu, a former colony of Corinth and a strategic naval partner. This move provoked Corinth and alarmed Sparta. Subsequent Athenian actions violated the terms of the 30 Years' Treaty, sparking accusations of aggression. Sparta and its allies viewed Athens as a growing threat to Greek stability and prepared for conflict. Guided by the influential statesman Pericles, Athens refused to compromise or retreat. Diplomatic efforts failed to de-escalate the situation. In the spring of 431 BC, open hostilities erupted when Thebes, a Spartan ally, launched an attack on Plataea, a loyal ally of Athens, thus marking the official beginning of the Great Peloponnesian War. The first phase of the Peloponnesian War: plague, strategy, and brutality. The early years of the Peloponnesian War can be divided into two main phases, separated by a temporary truce. The first phase, known as the Archidamian War, lasted a full decade and began with an aggressive Spartan invasion of Attica, the territory surrounding Athens. Led by King Archidamus II, the Spartans sought to force Athens into open battle. However, the Athenian leader Pericles, recognizing the superior strength of the Peloponnesian land forces, refused direct confrontation. Instead, he implemented a defensive strategy, ordering Athenians to shelter behind the city's walls while using their naval power to strike along enemy coastlines. This strategy was soon tested by tragedy. In 430 BCE, a devastating plague swept through the overcrowded city of Athens, claiming the lives of thousands, including Pericles himself. The epidemic severely weakened Athenian military capacity and morale. The historian Thucydides, who personally contracted and survived the disease, provided a harrowing, first-hand account of its effects on the city's population and leadership. Meanwhile, the Spartans launched campaigns against Athenian positions in western Greece but were consistently repelled. Their efforts at sea also failed to produce results. In 428 BCE, the city-state of Lesbos, a tributary of the Athenian Empire, attempted to rebel. The Athenians quickly crushed the uprising and secured control of Mytilene, Lesbos's principal city. What followed revealed the brutal realities of ancient Greek warfare. Influenced by the fiery rhetoric of the demagogue Cleon, the Athenian assembly initially voted to execute the entire male population of Mytilene and enslave the women and children. However, the decision was reversed the following day, and only the revolt's leaders were put to death. Despite their early invasions, the Spartan campaigns during the plague years yielded little success. Their only major achievement came in 427 BCE with the capture of Plataea, an Athenian-aligned city of considerable strategic importance. Yet overall, the war had become a prolonged and punishing stalemate, marked by suffering, political upheaval, and shifting public opinion within both camps. Athenian counteroffensive and the turning tide of war. As the Peloponnesian War continued, Athens shifted to a more aggressive posture. In the years following the devastating plague, the Athenians launched a series of bold military campaigns aimed at weakening their adversaries and expanding their influence. Their forces advanced into western Greece, conducted raids in the Peloponnese, and even launched an ambitious naval expedition against Syracuse, the powerful city-state in Sicily. By 425 BCE, the situation for Sparta had grown increasingly precarious. Athenian victories, combined with internal pressures, led some Spartan leaders to begin seeking peace. However, a shift in momentum occurred in 424 BCE, when a Spartan commander named Brasidas, widely celebrated for his earlier role in the Battle of Delium, led a daring campaign into the Chalcidice region in northern Greece. There, he successfully turned several Athenian subject cities against their imperial rulers, destabilizing Athens's northern holdings and reviving Spartan morale. This surge in Spartan fortunes culminated in the Battle of Amphipolis in 422 BCE, a pivotal clash that resulted in the deaths of both Brasidas and the influential Athenian general Cleon. The loss of these two prominent figures, each representing the hawkish factions within their respective states, paved the way for diplomacy to take root. With Cleon gone, the moderate statesman Nicias, long an advocate for peace, stepped forward. He successfully persuaded the Athenian assembly to accept a negotiated settlement with Sparta. This led to a temporary cessation of hostilities and marked the end of the war's first major phase. The Peace of Nicias and the Catastrophe in Sicily. The Peace of Nicias, signed in 421 BCE, marked a fragile pause in the Peloponnesian War. Though it was intended to last for 50 years, the truce ultimately endured for only 6. This uneasy peace was characterized not by full disarmament but by a shift in tactics. Both Athens and Sparta turned to diplomacy, political intrigue, and small-scale military actions in a contest to win over neutral or weaker Greek city-states. Rather than resolving tensions, this period of political maneuvering only deepened divisions and fueled mistrust. By 415 BCE, the peace had all but unraveled. That year, Athens launched one of the most ambitious and ultimately disastrous military campaigns of the entire conflict, the Sicilian expedition. The objective was to conquer Syracuse, a powerful city-state on the island of Sicily and a potential rival to Athenian influence in the western Mediterranean. The campaign proved to be a turning point and a catastrophe. Although the Athenians initially established a siege, Syracuse, with the support of Spartan reinforcements, successfully resisted. In 413 BC, even after Athens sent a second fleet and additional troops to reinforce the campaign, the tide did not turn. The Athenian forces suffered successive defeats on land and at sea. Ultimately, the Athenian army was decisively routed, and their navy was destroyed during a failed retreat. What had begun as a bold effort to expand Athenian power ended in complete disaster. Thousands of Athenian soldiers and sailors were killed or captured, and the loss crippled Athens both militarily and psychologically. The Sicilian expedition stands as one of the most devastating defeats in ancient Greek history, marking the beginning of Athens's decline in the final phase of the war. The fall of Athens and the end of the Peloponnesian War. By 411 BCE, Athens was no longer just battling external enemies, it was unraveling from within. In the wake of the disastrous Sicilian campaign and mounting war fatigue, the Athenian political system descended into crisis. Democracy was overthrown in a coup led by an oligarchic faction, briefly replacing the democratic government with an elite council. This regime, however, was soon replaced by a more moderate administration known as the Rule of the 5,000. Despite internal instability, the Athenian navy, which had been rebuilt and revitalized, achieved a series of important victories. Encouraged by these successes, the fleet intervened to restore democracy in Athens by the end of 411 BC. Yet, rather than seeking peace, the newly reinstated democratic leaders rejected Spartan offers for a negotiated settlement, choosing instead to press forward with the war. The conflict dragged on, particularly at sea, where the Athenian and Spartan fleets exchanged a series of bloody and costly engagements. The final and decisive blow came in 405 BCE at the Battle of Aegospotami. There, the Spartan admiral Lysander, supported heavily by Persian funding, executed a surprise attack that annihilated the entire Athenian fleet. With its naval power destroyed, Athens was left defenseless. By 404 BC, surrounded by an impenetrable Spartan blockade, cut off from food and supplies, and politically exhausted, Athens surrendered. The defeat of Athens marked not only the end of the Peloponnesian War but also the collapse of the most culturally dynamic and intellectually advanced city-state of the ancient Greek world. Though Sparta emerged as the nominal victor, the war had crippled the collective military and political strength of Greece, leaving the region fractured and vulnerable in the decades to follow. If you found this deep dive into the Peloponnesian War compelling, subscribe to History Love for more in-depth explorations of turning points in ancient history. Like, share, and comment to join the discussion. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. See you in the next chapter of history.